Journalism is highly valued in the world we live in. However, statistics shows that women dominate journalism schools but not newsrooms. Does this mean that women are coming out of these journalism schools and going into other fields of studies? I, as a female interested in pursuing a career in sports media, whether it's broadcast or journalism, I still have doubts about if it's fair or not. I believe that the underrepresentation of women and gender inequality in the media shouldn't still be a factor in today's society, but unfortunately it's overpowering our society. Each year, women comprise more than 2/3 of graduates with degrees in journalism or mass communications, and yet the media industry is just 1/3 women, a number that only decreases for women of color. Cheryl Smith, Secretary of the National Association of Black Journalists and the editor and publisher of the multi-platform news organization iMessenger News Group, stated that she found a lack of opportunity for journalists of color when she graduated from Florida A&M University in 1980.
The LGBTQ plus community has a lot of, they have a lot of news outlets of their own. Like there's lots of magazines about pride festivals, and there's like Autostraddle magazine is like one of the staple LGBTQ plus related publications. And so while I think that it's great that they have their own publications in this way of life, I think that incorporating the people who are passionate about these subjects and incorporating that into everyday print media, like online media, I think that's really important. I think that's something that's not done enough. I mean, like there are lots of writers, and like Joan Didion. You look at all these amazing writers and these reporters, and none of them are gay. It's strange. But I think that while we're making leaps and bounds by having our own publications about these topics, I think it's more important to let those people who fall into those categories break the mold with regards to patriarchal working norms. I mean, like a lot of companies, when you apply for a job, and we know this best, is that they say, like, we're an equal opportunity employer. We don't care if you're like black, white, gay, straight, doesn't matter. But you still see that sort of discrimination in things like that. I mean, I remember when my mother was applying for jobs, because she's from the Dominican Republic, she would always check off Hispanic. And there was this one time where she got a call for an interview. And she answered the phone, and she was just like, hello, and this woman on the other line was just like, hi, can I speak to Dee and Elba? And she was like, yes, this is she. And she's like, oh, I wasn't expecting someone white. And it was just, and it wasn't communications related, but it's just things like that, where people are so set in their ways and not willing to see that things are changing, and are just so stuck in their bubbles about how things have always been, and not willing to just adapt and change. I think that's really important, and I think that's something that people don't do enough. It's hard to navigate, and lots of people are really hard to peg when it comes to stuff like that, but I think that the most important thing is just remembering what you love to do and what you're there to do. If you like talking to people for journalism or any form of communication, that's what you do, that's what you love to do, that's what you're there to do. And you have to remember that the end result of what you're doing is going to benefit you far more and stick with you in a much longer run than what someone thinks about you in the heat of the moment when you're asking them questions, hard-hitting or not. I think more so now that people are starting to really wake up and kind of have that sense of just like, well, things are changing and they're not going to stop. But I think that, I feel like men are always going to earn more money in the same job and things of that sort, and always be better respected as human beings because they're men. Women are very, I don't want to use the word underrated, but they're, I don't know, some people still have those patriarchal views when it comes to working and jobs and things of that nature. And while I think that it's changing, it's not changing fast enough. Yeah. I was at the Connecticut Arts Day. It's like a big festival that Hartford holds once a year for like a bunch of artists from all over the state to come around and just like share their art and share their stories and whatnot. And I was working with Culture Magazine doing interviews on artists and like guest speakers and mediators, and I just remember like walking up to people and having them give me a look like, oh, who's that dyke? trying to interview me, and it was kind of just like people tend to forget about what we're really there to do, as opposed to like what we look like, because you can't judge a book by its cover, and at the end of the day I'm just there to do my job. So I feel like people have a lot of trouble seeing past like their own normativity and trying to incorporate that into other people's lives, even when people are just doing what they're being paid and love to do. I think that creative writing as an art form is just something that people think that anyone can do. I don't want to be like, oh, journalism is best. Like, we can write, yeah, blah, blah, whatever. But I think that people think that it's a lot easier to just sit down and write, as opposed to, because it's very easy. Like, people keep journals, diaries, what have you. But to write something that really means something to other people, it takes research, and it takes that sort of drive for the truth. And people don't do that enough, and people are just kind of waiting for, I don't even know how to describe it. People are just releasing and releasing without fact checking, and I think it's just, it needs to change. And I'm hoping that people start to understand that more, because when you look at today's journalists, I mean, you look at websites like BuzzFeed and like lots of online publications, and you see these people that are just releasing for the sake of releasing, but what's the message that you're really trying to convey with what you write? And I think personally that with lots of online publications, there isn't one. They're posting for the sake of posting for a paycheck, and it's sad seeing that websites like that fall under the category of journalism, when it's just like opinions. And like, op-eds are cool, but with every op-ed there's a message at the end of it. What are you trying to convince people based on your own opinion? And I feel like with publications like that, it's just like, we think it's great, that's it.
This argument has been going on for decades. Should women sports reporters be allowed in the locker rooms of male athletes? This dates back to 1970s, in part because of lawsuits against major newspapers and magazines for discriminatory hire practices. Women such as Claire Smith and Melissa LeDuc were hired to cover sports. Initially, they and other female sports reporters were buried from men's locker rooms, but when after a World Series game, LeDuc was barred from the locker room and missed an important story. She and her employer, Sports Illustrated, a subsidiary of Time Inc., sued Major League Baseball for discriminatory access. The suit was won, but female reporters in every sport and every franchise had to negotiate and militate for access. I believe Robin Herman, hockey reporter for the New York Times in 1975, became the first woman to enter the men's locker room.
My number one role model that I've always watched was Sage Steele, and Jemele Hill now, who's actually been a mentor to me while I was in college. I just think both of them are so true to themselves and so down to earth as well. They're very humble, they're very successful, they are very real. So those Sage Steele and Jemele Hill are definitely two people that I idolize. Absolutely. I mean, I'm not going to say that everyone is going to shoot their shot, but in a lot of different situations, especially if it's like a one-on-one interview where maybe it's just me, an athlete, and a videographer, they feel a little more comfortable. I wouldn't say it happens all the time at all, but it does happen, and you just have to, as a person, you have to know where you're trying to go, and if this situation is going to help you get there. Because for me, I don't really entertain that. I don't think it's just women. I just think media in general. But there is like a 15-minute grace period. You can't just go in with them. But it's just kind of, I lean on the fence with it only because you want to get their reaction right after the game. If they're mad and you want to get that emotion, opposed to 30 minutes goes by, they might be more calm. So just from a media standpoint, you get more out of it the closer it is to the end of the game. But on the opposite end of their own privacy, maybe they need a little bit more than 15 minutes. But this is your job, so if you know you have 15 minutes, maybe speed it up. But I don't think, I mean, it's a professional environment. So if I'm being professional, you should also be professional. If you're in a towel, cool. But I mean, they walk around naked and they're like, whatever, you're in here. This is where I work. So you could have waited a little bit longer. It's kind of like probably what they're thinking. But it's like, I have a story to tell. I have a job to do as well. So I don't think it should be more time given. I just think it should be more of a, if you know women reporters are going to be in there, just, I mean, I wouldn't be butt naked. But some of them really don't care, and I've been in that situation as well in baseball. They just walk around, and you just have to kind of, I mean, don't look down. Absolutely. I mean, I'm not going to say that everyone is going to shoot their shot, but in a lot of different situations, especially if it's like a one-on-one interview where maybe it's just me, an athlete, and a videographer, they feel a little more comfortable. I wouldn't say it happens all the time at all, but it does happen, and you just have to, as a person, you have to know where you're trying to go and if this situation is going to help you get there. Because for me, I don't really entertain that